and welcome to the Varsity Tutors Star Course series, where today we're headed on a virtual rainforest adventure with our good friends at the Johnny Morris Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium. I'm joined today by Wonders of Wildlife lead educator Alexander Konarski, who will be giving us a tour of the characteristics of rainforests and what critters we might be able to find there. And I think we're even going to get the chance to meet an up-close critter a little later on in today's lesson. Now, before we head off to learn about rainforest ecosystems, I want to be sure everyone is super comfortable with today's live classroom ecosystem. So as you have questions throughout the lesson and as you answer Alexander's questions for you, feel free to use the Ask button in your live learning platform to both ask and answer questions throughout the lesson. And if we don't get to those questions straight away, not to worry, we're going to have about 10 minutes at the close of the lesson set aside for Q&A with Alexander. You'll also want to make sure that you have your cameras close by, because toward the end of today's lesson, we're going to have the opportunity to lean into the screen and pose for a selfie. And if you post those selfies on Instagram and you tag us here at Varsity Tutors and Wonders of Wildlife, you'll be entered to win a 3-month subscription to VT+. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about that prize and details on how to enter toward the end of today's lesson. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to your instructor for today, Alexander Konarski.
Hey, Haley, thank you so much. How are you guys doing out there? I think you guys are going to be doing pretty good after this lesson today. So I'm going to start off our lesson here like I always do. You guys know my name. It's Alexander, and I'm here at Wonders of Wildlife Natural History Museum and Aquarium, and that is located in Springfield, Missouri. And so I want to know where you guys are from. Where are you guys from at all over the world? Are you guys local again? We had quite a few locals last time here zooming in. We had some down in Florida, all the way out in California. So I want to see where you guys are at today and say it's not a bad time. It's pretty early in some places, but I guess it's also pretty late in others. Okay, so we do have a few locals popping up again. Awesome. Glad to see you guys are back. Oh, wow. Okay, we do have some overseas visitors. I wonder what time it is there for you guys. I can't always remember the hour and the time zone difference. I get confused sometimes when I'm thinking about out west, trying to remember that they're 2 hours behind and not 2 hours ahead. I made that mistake the other day and it made for an awkward texting situation. But all right, so man, you guys are all over the place. That's awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. Glad you guys are here. We're going to go ahead and jump into our outline for today's lesson. So we are obviously going to be talking about rainforests, but our first section is going to be covering what are rainforests. You know, some people have maybe been there or maybe live really close to them, but others maybe have never seen them or they live so far away, you know, all you get to do is see them on TV. But after we cover what rainforests are, we're going to talk about the types of rainforests. Did some of you guys know that there was more than one? Maybe not. I know for a long time when I was younger, I thought there was only one type of rainforest, and then I figured out that there were more. And then after we talk about the different types of rainforests and the differences between them, but also some of the similarities, we're going to be covering some of the awareness factors for our rainforests and what the importance of having rainforest ecosystems are. So before we dive in again to our next slide, I talked about what are rainforests. I want you guys to take a minute and think, and I want you to start filling up that chat box again. I want you to let me know, what do you think about when you hear the word rainforest? Does a certain image pop in your head? Is it a certain animal? Is it a certain place in the world? Is it like a fun movie that you guys remember that you're like, oh, every time I think of rainforest, it always brings me back to this movie? Maybe it's that new one, Jungle Cruise, you know? So go ahead, let me see what you guys think. Okay, yeah, some of you guys are saying really dense jungles, really wet, hot, humid. Yep, humidity is going to be a big one in some of these places. For me, that would be a killer. I do not do well with humidity. I am from a dry climate originally. Adjusting to the humidity here in Missouri is already challenging enough, let me tell you. Been here for years, still can't get used to it. Cannot sleep if it's humid inside. Got to have that dehumidifier on. All right, so we got some other things here. Some of you guys are naming off some animals. Cool. Oh, I'm starting to see some comments. Some other people are talking about the other rainforest type that we have. Okay. All right, you guys know what's up. All right. We're going to go ahead and just talk about some of the main characteristics of rainforests. So these are going to be things that are very similar amongst our different types. And so for that, again, yes, they are very, very wet ecosystems. you have to have an average of at least 60 inches of rainfall per year to be considered a rainforest. Other things here, they're going to have very similar plants as far as epiphytes. Those are plants that are actually going to grow on other plants. They're not parasitic. You know, they're not the type of plants that are going to choke out another plant and like steal nutrients or water from them. They are plants that they just don't like being on the ground. So they're going to take refuge on top of other species. And then some other things that we have going on here is going to be the different layering system. So different rainforests have different layers. Also, biodiversity is pretty high up in both of our rainforest types. One rainforest definitely has more than the other, but they do house a wide variety of different plants and animals. But speaking about layers, we're going to go ahead and jump into our next slide here real quick. So starting at the very bottom layer, rainforests typically have 4 layers. We're going to start with the forest floor, then we're going to move up to the understory, followed by the canopy, and then the very, very top, we have the emergent layer. And so let's break those down individually a little bit more. Forest floor, obviously, that's right on the ground. That's where all the soil is. And now the soil composition is going to be a little bit different between our 2 different types of rainforest, but this is where most of our decaying matter is going to fall. All that organic matter that either falls off the plants or the animals that die, that's going to land there on the forest floor. That's where a majority of that is going to happen. This is also going to be like the darkest portion of most of our rainforests because it's very hard for light to get down there. And we'll tell you why here in just a minute. But moving up into the understory layer, this is going to be a spot where it's for all of our really short, smaller trees and plants. Like if I was a tree, I'd be in the understory. I mean, it's a hard truth, but I'd be in the understory. I'm not a very tall tree. But this spot, those plants are typically going to have like larger leaves. They're going to be able to catch the little bit of sun that is making its way through and a little bit of that water that is getting down, because so they have to have these special adaptations that, yes, even though they're smaller, they're nice and stocky, you know, they're a little bit bigger. They can catch some of that extra stuff going on. And so going above the understory, we have the canopy. Now, this is where we get into some of those taller trees, but a canopy is a almost impenetrable network of vines, branches that are going to be weaving all back and forth. And that's going to be blocking out a lot of the sunlight that is going to be going down to the understory and the forest floor. So that's why it's typically darker down there, even if it may be really bright outside with hardly any cloud coverage. And so that portion right there is going to be your denser spot, but it is going to be housing a lot of food. And it's going to be very absent of predators for the most part. So that's a very good spot for a lot of our other animals to go and get food if they want to get up off the ground. And if they can make it up there, whether they're flighted or if they're good climbers. Then moving above that, we have the emergent layer. The emergent layer, sometimes we call it the sunlight layer. That is the very top. Trees in that layer can get sometimes up to 200 feet or taller. Those are your like Yao Ming trees up there, you know, super tall. And that is where all the sunlight is just going to be beating right down. For the most part, it's not going to make it past that emergent layer and that canopy layer. But the little bit of it that does get to the understory, and then you maybe have a ray or two there hitting the forest floor. But that top is going to be the tip top most where all that sun hits. The seeds up there are also a little bit different. Down below in the understory, those plants are going to rely on having really big, bright flowers a lot of times to help attract pollinators. In the canopy, they're going to have more fruits or nuts, things that are attracting animals to come pick them, maybe open them up and then drop them down. And so they're going to be a little bit heavier too. So if they fall off the trees, they can make their way and crash their way all the way to the bottom of the forest floor and hopefully maybe grow into something else. But the top, they're going to have a little bit hard time breaking through that canopy layer because again, it's so dense. It's just very, very dense. So what they do is that's where your really light seeds are going to be. And so they're going to be able to be blown away by the breeze and carried off into other places and hopefully finding holes here and there to start populating and growing again. So that's pretty cool. Now we've talked a little bit about what rainforests are. We talked about their layering system a little bit. Let's go ahead and break down the 2 main types of rainforests. I know some of you guys in the comments earlier, you knew all about this already. Some of you though, you were like, well, tropical, like, is there subtropical? Like, what are you trying to get at here, Alex? Well, temperate rainforests, they are going to be a lot or very similar to our tropical where they're very wet. Now, they don't get on average as much rainfall as the tropical will. These guys can get over 100 inches of rain per year, but they're not going to be raining like consistently every day necessarily like the tropical will. But over here in the temperate rainforest, so what you're going to have is a little bit of a difference in animal variety as well as location. And so with the location of our temperate rainforest, if we can get our map slide pulled up there for you guys, you'll notice that the temperate rainforest is very far north or it's very far south of the equator. The equator is that middle portion of our globe. Now, there are two latitude lines that become very important here when we're talking about our rainforest. That is the Tropic of Cancer, which is north of the equator, and the Tropic of Capricorn, and that is south of the equator. Our temperate rainforests are not going to be found between those lines. They're going to be found north of the Tropic of Cancer and south of the Tropic of Capricorn. They're also normally going to be found along the coastlines. And so they're going to have a little bit cooler climates as well. They're going to be reaching, in there between 40 degrees and 80 degrees. Occasionally they will get down below freezing, but not very often. It can happen, but normally not so much. So talking a little bit more about temperate rainforests, we're going to pop up our next slide here so you guys can check out some of these quick facts as I go through them. But again, we talked about they're a little bit cooler. They're not going to be freezing, but they can still get warm. They do have a lot of rain, so humidity can sometimes come into play. But being where they are up along the coast, sometimes the humidity is a lot lower just because the oceans are right there. But what they also have here is their soil is going to be very, very rich. And that has to do with the decomposition that's going on. And so when things get down on the forest floor here for our temperate rainforest, since the environment's a lot cooler, it's going to take those things a lot longer to break down and decompose. So it's going to allow that stuff to really soak into the soil. And so our soil is going to be very nutrient rich here. And that's going to be going down pretty far. But again, they have epiphyte plants as well. So those plants grow on top of other plants. And then we're talking about the biodiversity here. The biodiversity of a temperate rainforest is going to be a little bit different than what you guys were saying about some of the tropical stuff earlier. So the temperate animals that we have going on here are going to be things like bald eagles. If you're here in North America, raccoons, black bears, you're going to find different deer species in there, depending if you're in different parts of the world. You'll maybe have wolves, foxes, bobcats, and different things like that. You're not going to have those like necessarily super bright and vibrant animals that are found in those tropical areas, at least not here in like North America. And I bet if some of you guys are paying attention to that map, North America, a lot of times we don't think about certain things. We don't think, we really have a rainforest here? That's crazy to think about. A lot of times, if you said we had a rainforest here in the United States, I bet most people would say in Florida, somewhere around in Florida. Like, I thought those were Everglades and wetlands and marshes and stuff like that. But over there in the Pacific Northwest, again, if you're paying attention to that map, it's going to be up in the Washington, Oregon, and like Northern California part. That is where our rainforests are going to mainly be. We do have some that are classified as rainforests out east a little bit, but not as big as the ones we have out in the Pacific Northwest. And again, as you also notice, they're all over the world. They're in most countries. Japan is one huge temperate rainforest. It's really, really cool. But we cannot do our tropical rainforest dirty here and only talk about the temperate. We had to give the temperate justice though, just because not a lot of people know about it. But it's time to talk about that tropical rainforest. This is the one that everybody is usually well aware of. This is what a lot of people start thinking about. I know it's what a lot of you guys were thinking about already. When I was seeing your comments there in the chat, you guys were definitely giving off tropical rainforest vibes. So let's pop up our map here real quick to show you the difference. So remember, on the temperate map, it was all over the place. It was very up high, it was very down low, so north and south. But again, we were talking about the tropical rainforest is going to be right along that equator line. So right in the middle, in between the Tropic of Cancer latitude that is just north of the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn latitude that is just south. So looking at this map here, you can see that they are not just found along the coastlines like most of our temperate rainforests. They are found right there in the middle band, just all the way across those continents, whether it's in South America and Central America, over into Africa, and then we're getting over there in like New Guinea and Southeast Asia and some of those portions. They're going to be right across the middle. They can expand away from that coastline. I mean, as we know, like Brazil and a lot of those Central American countries and Northern South American countries, they're mainly all rainforests down there. And so that's something that the tropical rainforest has going for it. It is very expansive in the parts that they are found. So we can go ahead and pop up our facts slide here to give you guys some more facts about them. Now, we talked about the similarities of rainforests and the similarities between the temperate and the tropical rainforest. But again, here's where we get a little bit different with some of our stuff. Now, we talked about the temperate rainforest having a very nutrient-rich soil. The tropical rainforest will also be pretty nutrient-rich, but only at the surface. The very surface of their soil are they going to have that really rich nutrients and those really rich soil. Once that's gone, it's not very good to do anything with. The plants that live there are pretty hardy. Now, they have adapted over time to be able to withstand that type of nutrient deficient soil. But if you try to put something else there that's not native to it, it doesn't really take very well. It's hard for it to get a foothold. But the decomposition, unlike the temperate side, where it was really slow, here it is really, really fast. Since it is so hot down here and very humid all the time, things are going to decompose very quickly, whether that is plant matter or animal matter. As long as it is organic matter, it will decompose extremely fast. Now, talking about the temperature a little bit. The temperature of a tropical rainforest, they don't really drop below 70 degrees. It is going to stay at about 70 or higher. A lot of times it's higher. It gets very hot down there. That's what I was saying. I'd be more at home visiting the temperate rainforest, like up in the Pacific Northwest, versus maybe visiting one of these places down along the equator. I'd love to do it, but my gosh, I would have to bring like a little portable fan or something with me. I would be dying down here. Now, the rainfall is another thing that's a similarity, but it's also a difference here. They do get a lot of rain, both of them, but the tropical rainforest gets so much more precipitation than a temperate rainforest will. A tropical rainforest is almost constantly wet. It's never going to really be dry anywhere. It's constantly wet. It is always raining. It's raining almost every single day. The rainfall here can exceed that 100 inches per year and get up to about 200 inches per year and even higher than that. It gets crazy, crazy wet down here. It also offers a lot of fingers and estuaries in a lot of their different parts. So when you think about the Amazon rainforest, we think of that as one just super complex network of rainforest, but as well as river systems and streams that just jut out everywhere. And that's because that water has to collect. It gets rained on so much that water can't soak into the ground anymore. It just collects in different places and is constantly popping up new tributaries and different things like that going through those rainforests. Here, the biodiversity is going to be a little bit different as well. Again, rainforest, biodiversity is big. They have a lot of different species of plants and animals, but tropical rainforests are going to have different plants and animals. I mean, that comes with anywhere in the world. Most parts of the world have their specific species of animals, but they all fill typically the same niche roles. Like you may have, let's say like a wolf up in a temperate rainforest, and then down in a tropical rainforest, you may have something like a jaguar. Those are going to be some of your main predators. They both fill that niche, that specific niche of a predator role. And so your prey items are going to be different, but also the same in the regards that they play the same role. And same thing with your producers, like your plants. But do you guys know what the main producer is for both a temperate and a tropical rainforest? I want you guys to go ahead and put it in the chat there. I'm not going to just give you all the answers. I want to see if some of you can remember back from class what the main producer is for almost everything. Okay, I see some of you guys popping it up. Some of you guys, oh, well, yeah, water is pretty important, but the sun. Sun is the main producer for both of these ecosystems. And so, yes, that is going to be a big similarity that they share, but we're digressing there a little bit. We're going back to the biodiversity of animals. So the animals here and the plants here, they are going to be numerous. There is so much animal life and plant life found within tropical rainforests and some specific rainforests that we're going to get to here in a second. But the biodiversity, huge here. And with that, we're going to lead into our next slide. And so after that, we're going to have a short video here from Lexi. She's going to walk you guys through a tropical rainforest exhibit here at Wonders of Wildlife. But can you guys guess which rainforest we're modeling after? Let's see it. Yep, first try right there. I can't read your name, but first try, Amazon rainforest. That's the classic rainforest, tropical rainforest that everybody almost thinks about immediately. So without further ado, we're going to let Lexi take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is is Lexi, and welcome to Ecosystem Exploration. Today, we've traveled to South America into the Amazon River Basin, which is home to 1/10 of the world's animal species. Here in our Amazon exhibit, you can find animals like the two-toed sloth, a green anaconda, emerald tree boas, and poison dart frogs. As you enter our Amazon exhibit, we have recreated the layers of the rainforest. The first layer is going to be the forest floor, which is home to our poison dart frogs. Did you know that poison dart frogs are brightly colored to warn off predators? As we keep moving through the exhibit, we will enter into the understory layer, which is home to our two-toed sloth and our iguanas. Did you know that two-toed sloths sleep between 15 and 18 hours a day? Man, I wish I could sleep that long. As you continue to move through our exhibit and up the stairs, you will enter our third layer of the rainforest, which is the canopy. The canopy is home to our green aracari birds. Our green aracari birds have really big, long beaks, and this is to help them to grab fruit off of trees as they're moving throughout the canopy. Our fourth layer of the rainforest is going to be the emergent layer, with trees towering as tall as 160 feet. This is where the most sunlight will come in so that we can grow that beautiful rainforest. The Amazon rainforest is home to many wildlife residents that we need to protect. They're under threat from practices such as logging, clear-cutting, and unsustainable agriculture. But there's hope for the Amazon rainforest. Our partners at the Nature Conservancy are working to protect the biodiversity of the rainforest while promoting sustainable agriculture practices. To learn more and see how you can get involved, go to nature.org.
Man, wasn't that a cool video? I mean, that is just some of the things that we have going on with the Amazon rainforest. I know Lexi was talking a little bit right there about some of the impacts and the struggles that the rainforests are facing. Before we get into that, though, I want to share a fun fact about the poison dart frogs. So we do have poison dart frogs here at Wonders of Wildlife, but do you know that they're not actually poisonous? And I'm not trying to pull the wool on you. Does anybody think they know why that they're not poisonous? If you think you know, put it in the chat real quick. I'm gonna let you think about it. I'm not lying to you. They are poison dart frogs, and they are poisonous in the wild. That's kind of your hint. So if they're poisonous in the wild, but they're not necessarily poisonous here, can anybody think, you know what? Oh, I think we had somebody say it. I think I saw it. Okay, I think somebody got it, but it's right, it's their diet. So the diet is going to be different for our poison dart frogs versus what the ones out in the wild are eating. There are ants that live in these ecosystems that have enzymes inside of them. And so when the frogs eat these ants, their bodies react with those enzymes chemically. And so that is what gives the poison dart frogs that toxin that they secrete along their body. So since we do not feed them those ants here, we don't have to worry about that. And I'm really glad that we don't actually feed them those ants, because that's just one of those things that you don't really have to worry about it, because they do eat other things. They definitely get fed here. But going back to the end of that video, now that I got to share my fun fact, we were talking about some of the impacts that rainforests are facing. And so if we want to go ahead, pop that up. We know that they are under threat from things like Lexi said, logging and clear cutting. Those are big things. When we think logging and clear cutting, we think those are some of very similar, but they're sometimes done for different purposes. Logging can be done to just acquire the wood. They're in there trying to acquire these certain woods that can only be found in rainforest ecosystems. And then they're using them for commercial, residential, private industries and things like that, or art, whatever it may be, but they're not doing it in a sustainable manner. They're just clear cutting these huge sections of rainforest, and they're not necessarily going back in and looking at what it takes to regrow that area to make sure that area becomes populated again with those trees. Because what happens when we log or we clear cut an area? Everything that lives in that area now has to find a new home. And so we're displacing a lot of animals on top of that. Now, clear cutting is sometimes a term that's referred to when we talk about making space for industrial things or urbanization or for agricultural purposes. And so that's where they go in and they just cut out these huge sections of rainforest, not necessarily, looking or expecting to do anything with the wood or the other materials that are in that spot. They literally just want that space. So that's where the clear cutting and logging kind of different. But talking about the unsustainable agriculture, again, we talked about tropical rainforest. What do you guys remember about the soil? What do you remember about what I said about the soil there? Remember, temperate rainforest, very nutrient rich. It's not just on the surface level, it's going to be throughout. Tropical rainforest, it's very rich on top, but then after a while, when that goes away or it gets used up, it's not very rich anymore. There's not going to be very many nutrients in it, and it's almost impossible for anything to grow there. Yes, a lot of the plants and the native species there are adapted to living in that soil condition, but they do need something to help get them started. They do need some kind of help with that soil. So when we go in and we clear cut an area and we plant a bunch of crops or we put in a bunch of cattle, that soil is going to get used up. It doesn't get used year after year after year after year. It'll get used for maybe a few seasons, but then all the nutrients in that soil will be depleted, and then they have to go somewhere else, which sometimes means that they go and clear cut a new area to then use for agriculture again. So we look at sustainable agriculture. We really need to take a look at what can we use down here? What can we do down here to help keep the soil where it needs to be, where it's not getting mixed up, because the soil already is very loose in an ecosystem like this, where it's going to get washed away by heavy rains, which are pretty constant in a tropical ecosystem, and they're going to get moved downriver. But when we start tilling up the soil, we really start disturbing it, it's going to make it very easy for it to erode away and leave the spot that it is supposed to be at. And so that's where it gets really hard. Another big thing is poaching. Poaching or unsustainably harvesting things from the wild. Now, there are a few different practices that and reasons that people go out and do this, whether they're looking for very specific species, for like birds, maybe it's an illegal trade, like a black market trade. They're looking for specific plumage, maybe they're looking for specific parts of an animal, but that is also a big problem. Now, there are a lot of people doing a lot of great things that are trying to help out these ecosystems. And so they have different ranging stations that are apart going out, which are, ranger units that are helping monitor these places, helping monitor different animals that live there. Over in Africa, we have these gorilla populations that are always monitored. So that way they can help live the best life out there with minimal impact. And we also have a lot of places that are trying to preserve parts of these rainforests. So land where it cannot be developed, you cannot go in, you cannot log, you cannot clear cut it, doing a lot of great things. So we talk about, a lot of the issues behind what they're facing, but why does it matter? A lot of people say, well, why does it matter? What are some of the things that why should we care? Well, when you talk about a rainforest, again, they offer so much. With tropical rainforests alone, there are so many medicines that come from product or different plants that are in these environments. And so if we do not take care of these environments and these ecosystems, we're going to lose access to these different species of plants that we use in our medical field. They also do provide goods and services or foods. But again, if we go in there and we do it unsustainably, those goods and products are going to be all used up. It is not limitless. We have to understand that these things are not limitless. Another good thing out there that rainforests do, we said it in a few of the other slides. What is another characteristic that both temperate and tropical share together? It has to do with the animal, it has to do with the plant species. Let's see it. There it is. Biodiversity. Man, you guys are on it in the chat. I love it. So biodiversity, huge. Again, rainforests, they house the most collection of species out of the entire world. It's a biodiversity hotspot. And that means it's going to be a very dense collection of animals and plant species, a lot of different organic matter. And so if we lose these ecosystems, we lose a lot of those species. Again, these species fill very specific niches in their habitats. Within our rainforest, we talked about our layers. Our layers are like mini habitats within that ecosystem, because animals that live on the forest floor, they're not going to necessarily be interacting with those that are up in the emergent layer or up in the canopy. So it's like two totally different worlds divided apart. But when we start taking out places where they don't have a lot of area to go and they're having to find, whatever's available, we start getting species of animals that may be found in one part of the rainforest, moving into other parts, and now they're competing. They are competing for their niche spot of being the top predator or being the top producer, and they cannot get all the resources that they need. And so you have species now competing against one another when normally they would have been worlds apart and they would have been able to be sustained perfectly fine. And so that is something that we really have to pay attention to. Now, I know we got a little bit here on this side. We talk about why, what things are going on and why they're important, but I have a special surprise for you guys. Now, we've been talking about rainforests all the time. If you've tuned into the other classes, we'll bring like artifacts and things up. I wanted to do something a little bit different this time. I have a little friend here, and I think we're going to be getting ready for our selfie moment right here in the beginning. So while I'm getting our friend ready, I want you guys to listen closely to what Haley has to say, because she's going to give you guys some quick instructions.
All right, everybody, Alexander's exactly right. We are getting ready for our selfie with a very special guest you'll be seeing in just a moment. And as you guys get those cameras at the ready, as a quick reminder, if you post those selfies to Instagram and you tag us here at Varsity Tutors and Wonders of Wildlife, you'll be entered to win a 3-month subscription to VT Plus, where you can learn about all sorts of animals, anime, dinosaurs, debate, and everything in between. You can take as many classes as you'd like, so you can discover new passions or learn more about what you love. And if you don't win, that's all right. Membership is available for just $19 a month. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Alexander to introduce our very special guest and pose for a couple selfies.
I think some of you guys may have seen him just now because he likes to move around quite a bit, but I'm going to pop him up on screen again. All right. Can you guys guess what this is? What is he? Let's see it in the chat. Look at him really closely here. Look at his tail, his little hands. That's right, he's a chameleon. So this is Fernando. Fernando is a panther chameleon. As you can see, he is very, very bright. What kind of rainforest do you guys think he lives in? Tropical, that's right. Okay, while I got him right here, nice and broadside for you guys, let's go ahead and snap those selfies. So get your cameras up. Here we go. I say he likes to pose. Oh yeah, see, he moves around quite a bit. You got to get your picture in there when you can. I'll go ahead and keep him up here while I'm talking a little bit more about him. So that way, if you didn't get a chance to get it right there, because I know he's quick, maybe you guys can get it while we're moving through some of the facts about him. But we left off with that he is a tropical rainforest inhabitant. You're not going to find him up in Washington, no. He's actually going to be found down in Madagascar. Do you guys know where Madagascar is? I say it's the land of move it to some of you guys. We talk about King Julian, the lemur. So yeah, Madagascar is found right off there up the southern or southeastern coast of Africa. And that is going to be a big tropical. He's going to say, dude, I don't live in a temperate rainforest. Come on. A big tropical rainforest down there. And so if you look at him here, let's see if I can get a little bit closer. You see his hand? So he's reaching down with it, but you see how it opens up? It's not like ours where we do this. It's almost like this. It's like a bend. It's like a clip. So he has 2 toes on one end, and then he has 3 toes on the back end. So he kind of pinches. He does a little grabbing motion with it. Sometimes we call them grab hands, but having these type of feet or these type of hands, they are going to be able to grab onto branches, vines, and leaves a lot better than with a traditional paw or pad or hoof or whatever they might have. So these guys are really expert climbers. And you see what he's doing with his tail here? He's starting to wrap it around my hand. His tail also acts as support. He can move this independent from his other limbs and help support his body as he is climbing through the different trees. What part of the rainforest do you think he's found in? Do you guys think he's found on the forest floor? No, probably not, right? As you see, he does not move very quickly. He is going to live a little bit higher up. He is not going to live in the emergent layer though. So he is going to be right there in the canopy portion. That's where he is going to like to live, right there in the canopy, maybe the understory. He's not going to live super high up, because when you live very high up in our rainforest ecosystem, you're going to need to be flighted. That is going to be the main thing you're going to need when you're all the way up there. But as you can see, he has legs. He has a very thick body. He is not going to be able to handle a fall from up there. All right. Another thing that we have really cool with chameleons, some of you guys probably know their eyes. Their eyes can move very independently. So one on each side. His eyes give him a very wide vision or wide range of vision. There you go, buddy. He's always trying to get high. I'm trying to keep him away from my head because if I let him get too close, he would go all the way on top of my head. All right. So he's able to focus his eyes on two different things. He can make one eye look over to the right. He can make one eye look over to the left. He can make one look down, one look up. But he is going to be able to focus on multiple things. And that really helps him out there in the wild avoid predators. Because again, he's very slow. He is not going to be able to outrun most of his predators. He's going to rely on being very still and camouflaged. So you notice that he is very green. He does have some other colors going on, but he can also make himself appear orange, yellow, a wide array. Now, not all chameleons can do that. Some chameleons have a very narrow spectrum that they can show, but the panther chameleon here, these are one of the guys that can show one of the widest variety of colors. And now one of the last adaptations I want to talk about is his tongue. So being as slow as he is, he's not really going to be running up and being an ambush predator. He is going to have to stalk his prey, remain very, very slow, and he's going to have to try and get him with his tongue. Now we think about frogs. You know, frogs are going to stick their tongue out. They're going to catch those flies. It's very sticky on the end. Well, the same thing goes with the chameleon's tongue. His tongue is going to be able to come out quite a ways away from his body. I'm going to try and go up my arm here. I'm going to have to get my hand in front of him real quick. You are not going onto my head, sir. So when he spots his prey, he's going to try and move into range as best he can without letting his prey know he's there. He's going to move very slow. He's going to take very calculated steps. Sometimes if you watch chameleons, they'll do one of these, like they're almost mimicking like a moving branch, but he is trying to determine whether or not he wants to go forward and where he wants to place those feet. Sometimes if you're watching him on my hand, you'll notice that he'll put his foot one place, he'll test it out, and he'll quickly move it somewhere else. So we're looking for that perfect foothold. But once he gets into range, he's going to lean forward with his head. He's going to open his mouth up. The tip of his tongue is going to come out. And then before you know it, and before that prey knows it, that tongue is going to shoot forward like a missile. And it's going to hit that target. And the end of it will actually fold around that prey item. A lot of people think it just touches it immediately and it gets stuck to it like sticky paper or fly paper. But their tongue will actually fold around a little bit right on the end. But underneath, just underneath that surface level, it is going to be a little bit harder. So that way he has a little bit of weight to shoot forward. It's just physics there. When you think about throwing an object, if you have a weighted end, it flies a lot straighter and a lot farther. You're going to get a lot more accuracy out of it. All right. How you doing, buddy? He's like, man, you're telling him all my secrets right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hold Fernando up again real quick so you guys can see him just for a second, but then we're going to send or give him a big goodbye so that way he can go back to the back because I think he's ready to get a treat. He said he has earned it. So if you guys want to take a quick picture again, I'm going to hold him off to the side here instead of in front of my face. Awesome. All right. I'm going to try and get him back on his stick here. Oh, it's just your stick. There you go. See how he's moving really slowly? Right now, he's trying to think, oh, wait a minute. Is there something I need to be watching for in my environment right now? He does a quick look around, all around him with his eyes. If you're able to follow that, good on you. Sometimes it's hard to follow where he's looking. Right now, he's looking directly back at me, which is kind of funny. It's kind of weird when you look at an animal and then all of a sudden they have their eyeball just trained on you, but the other one's looking off somewhere else. So he just got a little spooked by his stick there, but he's all good now. We're going to say goodbye to Mr. Fernando. Bye, buddy. All right. Wasn't that cool? I say, some of you guys have maybe never gotten to meet a chameleon in person or in real life before, but if you guys ever get the opportunity to get up close with one of these guys, please do. If you can get to a facility that has one and they have them out for an animal encounter, always stop by. They are such unique animals, very, very cool organisms.
All right. Well, thank you so much to Fernando for being such a cooperative special guest in today's lesson. And we have some really wonderful questions, Alexander, if you're ready to tackle a couple of those.
Let's do it.
Now, it's some very, very observant students, as you saw throughout today's lesson. And some of the questions that came up most often were concerning those differences between our temperate and our tropical rainforests, where students were kind of wondering why it seemed like the tropical rainforest species were quite colorful in comparison to maybe the duller colored or perhaps, able to hide animals that we saw out of the temperate rainforest. Could you talk a little more about why that is?
Yeah, and so that just has to do with their locations. Again, there are some temperate rainforests where you are going to have some more colorful organisms living inside or living within them, like when you go farther out east into like different parts of Asia. But for the most part, our temperate rainforests are going to have a little bit of a duller or darker variety of animals, as well as plant species, than the ones that live in the tropical regions. In the tropical regions, they do it for a few different things. So again, they are getting the most sunlight. The sun is going right overhead, so things are very, very bright. Well, to hide in a brighter environment, you need to be brighter. If you are super dark and you are just sticking out against the sun and things like that, you're going to be easily spotted. So being able to be very bright not only is going to help you blend in and camouflage more depending on what portion of the rainforest you're in, but sometimes, like with flowers, those in the tropical rainforest, they want to be very, very bright to help attract pollinators. So they're going to be able to see them a lot easier as far as pollinators go with their eyes and how they work. And they're also going to give off those really good smelling scents. But when we talk about tropical versus temperate, you got to think about relation to like cloud coverage and sun in the farther north areas, like in North America, and then farther south. It's not going to be as apparent as it is going to be across the equator where that sun goes directly overhead.
Very cool. So it looks like we have, some very different looking species that are very different looking for very similar reasons. We had a really similar follow-up question around whether there are any species that exist in both types of rainforests.
In both types of rainforests? Oh, I'm going to try and think off the top of my head here, the ones that you're going to find. So the species, like if you're talking about a specific species or like type of animal, like when we talk about owls as a whole, or like hawks, because you're going to be able to find like different eagles. There's harpy eagles that live in tropical rainforest, but then there's like, of course, bald eagles that live in temperate rainforest. As far as like a specific species of animal, like the literal same species, like a bald eagle in both, you won't find there. The closest spot you're going to be able to do that, again, would be out east, where you're going to have those tropical rainforests right there in the New Guinea and Southeast Asia portion, a little bit closer to their temperate counterpart, just a little bit farther north. But as far as a specific species of animal, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there are very similar species, such as eagles in both. There are going to be cats in both. So we have like bobcats that are going to be found in the temperate rainforest here in North America, where down in the tropical rainforest, you're going to find, your bigger cats like your jaguars. And so they do kind of fill those same roles, the same niches. Those were birds of prey. We have bigger cat predators. But the bobcat's not the biggest, baddest predator in the temperate rainforest, whereas a jaguar will probably be one of the apex predators or the largest predator in their area.
Very cool. And I know we mentioned earlier in the lesson about how, like you said, they have to take on these different roles, whether it's predator, herbivore, decomposer. And actually, super similar next question, which is, are there any types of animals that we wouldn't expect live in rainforests, but surprisingly enough, do?
So yes, there is. And it does happen to kind of tie into our next month's program. Is anybody aware of what next month is? Maybe not. I don't know if I leaked that. But next month, we're going to be talking about penguins. And so now when you think about rainforests, did anybody think about a penguin? Anyone? Okay, we got one person here from, way out there, kind of around where they're from. So, okay, you got an unfair advantage. But those over here in the US, unless you've watched very certain specials or you watched a famous actor being unable to say an animal's name. I'm not going to name him at all, Sherlock Holmes, but the TV show, not the movie. With that, we have, yes, penguins that can be found in rainforests. Now that is out in New Zealand. It is the Tawaki penguin. They look really cool. They have these like really long eyebrows. Sometimes they're called crested penguins, but they are going to be found in the rainforest, as well as all their other counterparts. We think down south, very cold, Antarctic. We do have some that reach like the southern tips of like Africa as well. But when we talk about rainforest penguins, you can find them. Go to New Zealand, spend the money on the plane ticket, go see them. I bet you they're really, really cool.
Very, very cool. And of course, if you're interested in learning more about penguins, probably more specifically those that don't live in rainforests, we'll get to talk a whole lot more about those in just about a month. And speaking of visiting, actually brings us to our next question very nicely, which is it safe to visit these rainforest environments? Safe for us, safe for the ecosystem? And if so, what sorts of things do we need to be aware of to make sure that we're not disturbing nature along the way?
Yeah, that is a great question, Haley. So with visiting rainforests, you most certainly can visit these locations. There are plenty of opportunities to get out there, especially like here in the United States. When we talk about our temperate rainforest up in the Pacific Northwest, again, Olympic National Park. It is a national park that people are allowed to go to. And when you go up there, we just ask that you be respectful of nature, respectful of what's there. Take only photos, leave nothing but footprints behind. If you can take away your footprints, even do that. That'd be cool. If you learn how that ability works, let me know. But yes, just be very respectful when you go in. We don't want to be manipulating a lot of things. We don't want to be tearing stuff down, breaking things. If you see wildlife, observe from a distance. Be very kind to it. Don't try to scare it. Don't try to spook it into doing anything. Don't try to go up and touch it or pet it, please. That can lead to a bunch of bad things really quickly, maybe either for you or for the animal. So the best thing to do is just observe everything from a distance. But even the tropical rainforest, I know like a lot of stuff in movies, we see the Amazon always portrayed, and sometimes it's portrayed in like, man, it's a very dangerous place. Yes, it can be a very dangerous place, but that is with everywhere that's wild in nature. You just have to respect it. If you have a healthy appreciation and respect for nature, you can, yes, even though it's dangerous, you most certainly can still visit it. And a lot of these tropical rainforests down in Central America, you go to visit some of these countries, they have ecotourism. They have tourism guides that'll take you out. They'll show you different parts. In the Amazon, I believe you can even do like riverboat cruises. I mean, that's what the movie they just made. But yeah, you can get out there and you can take cruises and they will have guides. Please always go with a guide, especially when you go to a place that you've never been before. Don't try to go out there just on your own, going off the beaten trail. If there's paths, stay on the paths. Be aware of the type of animals that are in your environment. If you are allergic to things like poison ivy, really badly, be aware of what poison ivy looks like. Always be respectful. Try not to touch anything, especially if you don't know what it is. But you can be safe in these environments and these ecosystems.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks so much. And this next question I'm going to go ahead and tackle really quickly. And that is this recorded? And the answer is yes. You can access this recording and any of those other lessons that we've been fortunate enough to partner with Wonders of Wildlife for to learn about all sorts of different creatures on the Varsity Tutors YouTube page. So definitely feel free to check us out there. And that actually brings me to our final question, which is we've got a lot of students who are very knowledgeable already, but also interested in learning more, who are wondering what other resources are out there, what else can they do to learn a little bit more about rainforest environments?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we are in the age of technology. I mean, a lot of you guys that are streaming in right now, you are way more tech savvy than I am or ever will be. But the internet is your friend here. The social media platforms are your friend. When you want to learn more about these, you can go to the different organizations like the Nature Conservancy that we mentioned in our video, and they will have a lot of different stories or news articles on there, different programs that'll help you. We also have them here at Wonders of Wildlife. If you go onto our website, you can find our different resources to do this, but if you go on like Netflix, Disney Plus, you're going to find a bunch of documentaries as well. Our main man, David Attenborough out there, he does a lot of great ones. I mean, if you want to learn more, you just have to put the effort in looking for it. Again, you can go to the internet for mostly all of it. But again, local library, that's a good one. Does anybody go to the library anymore? I mean, I went there the other month. I feel bad because I haven't been there super long, but yeah, you can go there if you're a bookworm and you'd rather read it physically, like in hand versus off of a screen. I know a lot of parents are like, yeah, let's minimize the screen time here, Alex. Don't be telling everyone just to be on their phone all day. So yes, you can find those physical resources. You can get onto mailing lists and they will send you magazines. They will send you email updates. You can do a lot of different stuff with different organizations.
Very cool. And I think at the beginning of the lesson, we mentioned that there are some Wonders of Wildlife specific next steps that you had in mind for us concerning your mission conservation. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
There are. So with mission conservation, we've done this with the last 2 lives as well. The last 2 you've done with me with cnidarians and sea turtles. But we are going to have a downloadable mission for you to play. I believe we have a couple slides for this as well, Haley. So if we pop that up, if you guys go to wondersofwildlife.org, mission or /mission-conservation, you'll be sent to this page here. And if you look over on the right, you're going to see a thing that says download the app here. So if you want to click on that in the little blue box, it'll help you download the app. You just make a login and a username. And if you scroll further down into the middle of the page, you're going to see featured missions. Featured missions, this is going to be the portion where you're going to find the most current missions activated. And so on here, you should, when you go on today or after this class, you will see the rainforest one that you can play. And that's going to test your knowledge a little bit and give you some extra stuff to do at home. Teachers, you guys can also pop these up in your classroom, and then you can also have your students do it with you. It's really cool. At the very bottom, we have our scheduled missions and activities. This is going to be a list of all the additional mission conservations that we have going on here at Wonders of Wildlife that you can play at home. And then after this, if you go to this link, after dealing with mission conservation, you can have an additional resource to help you along your way with playing that mission. This is on our Wonders of Wildlife website as well. Right there in the middle, you're going to see that ecosystem exploration video that you can rewatch again with Lexi. You can watch that as well as ours when it pops up on YouTube. But then off to the right, if you look there, parents, teachers, you are going to see different packets. You're going to see a student guide and a teacher guide. And what that is, it's going to have a lot of different information in it for different grade levels. And so some grade levels, are going to be a little bit lower. Some are going to be a little bit middle and higher learning. And so with that, you can do extra lessons at home if you just want extra fun, extra practice. The teacher guide, parents and teachers, it's going to give you everything that you need in there for the most part. You may have to do a little bit of research on your own still. I mean, if I put everything I could in there, it would be so long you wouldn't want to look at it. It'd be like a novel. So check that out. It's really going to help your students at home. It's really going to help your kids at home. And again, it has some really good tips, really good resources to help you guys through your mission on the rainforest mission conservation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexander. And for those of you who didn't get those links just yet, not to worry, they are both in the description, and we'll have that mission conservation up on screen for you in just a moment as well. But in the meantime, I want to thank you once more, Alexander, and the entire team at Wonders of Wildlife for joining us. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live and asked such thoughtful questions, participated with Alexander's questions. We hope to see you back for that lesson concerning, a creature that we'll say usually, not always, but usually lives in an ecosystem pretty different from the one that we saw today, the penguin. But in the meantime, we hope to see you all back in another Varsity Tutors Star course soon. And while you're at it, don't forget to post those selfies and tag us here at Varsity Tutors and Wonders of Wildlife to win. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye, guys.